Oh, that would help to get unmuted. We should know these things by now. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It is Monday, March 6th. Oh, can you believe it? I mean, we should be enjoying all the delights of spring, like my daffodils, but for anybody in Southern California, you know that we've got some crazy weather going on here. So it's totally confusing and upside down. Anyway, so I am here. It's Jennifer Tim with the Welcome Home Global Group, and I have the latest, greatest market information. And we have a very, very important question that we will be addressing today. So I'm going to get started with the presentation. Okay, so reminder, March 6th. Okay, so the question right now that we are receiving is now a good time to sell my home? You know, traditionally, this is when the most number of properties come on the market, buyer demand is up, and everything gets off to an amazing start. Well, we're going to have a look at this from a national point of view and from a Southern California view, and then have a look at some of our local cities to see what's actually going on. Because just like the weather is kind of unstable and unpredictable. I mean, after, just another example of the weather, no sign of rain anywhere yesterday until last night, and then the heavens opened. So there's that. You just can't quite, no one quite knows where we are. So let's have a look at the national news. Lots of information on this slide, and I thought it was easier to use this, which does come from one of the title companies, a national title company, and they put all this information together, and it's good to be able to see how everything interrelates. Mortgage rate. So the weather volatility is being echoed in the mortgage rate volatility. So if you have a look at the graph on the top right-hand corner, you'll see during 2021, there was a little bit of variance, but it wasn't until the Feds decided to increase the Fed rate that we suddenly saw this volatility being introduced. And if you look at this, I mean, honestly, it's no one quite knows where anything is going. And, there's different schools of thought, of course, with these economists. Not going to delve into those. Definitely search out your favorite economists. I would say listen to more than one and try and understand why the Feds are doing whatever they're doing, and see if the economists are in support or not. There's one that I follow who definitely is of the opinion that the Feds kind of need to stabilize a little bit so that the markets can stabilize and absorb what we're doing. Because this volatility has resulted, the top left-hand corner, you can see that on February 2nd, our interest rates for a 30-year fixed rate was 5.99%. Big smile on every realtor's face, big smile on every buyer's face, because we immediately saw those buyers coming back into the market because that was more affordable for many of our buyers. And yet here we are, and this is just a snapshot from a month later, and it's gone up by more than 1%. So 30-year fixed rate is sitting around, it's in the sevens now. And so this increase in rate means that affordability for buyers is at issue. And when the rates go up, the buyer demand goes down. So that we definitely know. And just to kind of give you an idea, right below that, below this yellow section, if you have a look, July 2022, median 413 priced home at 5.5%, monthly payments is 2.3. The only saving grace with the increased rate is also the median, and now we're talking national, the median home price has gone down as well. So because the median home price has gone down, that payment has gone down. So, we always need to look at those numbers, never look at one in isolation, because we've got to look at the interest rates, we've got to look at the home prices, we've got to look at the speed of the market, and we've got to look at the inventory. But this is just a snapshot showing us that every time when these rates go up, we do know that the buyer demand is going to come down. Another factor to keep in mind is the cost of taking out a loan is a conventional loan is about to go up. So this addresses buyer demand again, because when it costs more to physically take out a loan, that may then eliminate some buyers from the market, or it may force the buyers to look at a lower price point instead of where they were looking, maybe looking currently. And that's down on the bottom right-hand corner. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, the new loan pricing start date is supposed to be March 3rd and fully implemented by May 1st. I've had some lenders tell me that they're already implementing some of these loan pricing options. And yeah, so, those are the official dates. So it is going to cost somebody more. In addition, there's two things that are going to impact the price of a loan. Number one is they are now, with these new loan pricing, there's a higher credit score standard. And before, the best rate was 740. Now you need to have a 780. To get a lower priced loan product, you're going to have a higher credit rating. There's also debt to income, and we're going to have a look at that on a future slide. But these things are all going to make it a little more expensive for a buyer in the midst of a higher interest rate market to be able to afford a loan. We know that, having a look just generally at the market, so the stock market, so January 2023, best January for bonds in 23 years. And then February has turned out to be the worst for bonds. And these are the bonds that support the mortgage industry, basically. We do know that inflation is sticky. And one big thing that is being discussed at great length by all these economists is going to be, what is the Fed going to do with the next increase? It is scheduled for March 22nd. When we were at the beginning of the year, and then especially when those interest rates came down into the fives and we were all smiling from ear to ear, the feeling at that point was that the mortgage industry had absorbed most of the interest, the increases of the Fed rates, because again, the interest rate for mortgages is not directly linked to the Fed rate. However, we do follow the 10-year Treasury. So when the Fed rate increases, the 10-year Treasury responds, and then that is basically what is used for the mortgage rates. The other thing, to get back to that point, so initially they were talking about possibly a 25 basis point increase. Well, now, because the inflation numbers are not coming down. Job reports are still super strong. The Feds are now talking about doing a 50 basis point increase in March. Now that could add another element of volatility, and we could see some more of this going on. So another conversation to have is that the spread of rates that we're seeing. So we're seeing that some lenders can offer in the fives, others are definitely up in the sixes and the sevens. That spread is so wide, and that again adds more volatility. So, the big thing right now is it's like the weather. Who knows what's going to be, it's going to be like tomorrow, because there's so many variables at play here. What we are expecting is that we should see an increase in seller concessions and reductions. And this is when we look at everything nationally. We will talk about Southern California specifically in the second half of our presentation. So we do know that 42% of closings in the fourth quarter of 2022 included seller concessions. And whereas at the beginning of 2022, when it was an insanely hot seller's market, basically sellers could sort of sit back and say, remove all your contingencies. I don't care about anything. You're just going to carry the cost of everything. I'm going to give you nothing. Those days are gone. So we know for sure. 30% of closings in quarter three included seller concessions. So we know between the third quarter and the fourth quarter, we definitely saw an increase in that. Looking at the percent of properties with recent price reductions, that is sitting, we're definitely hitting a low, because the properties that are languishing on the market right now have had the price reductions. Properties that are priced correctly for today's market, not the market we had a year ago, and definitely not one we had 18 months ago, those are selling fast. And we're going to get to that and what that has done to prices. Inventory. So this continues to be our biggest challenge with housing in the United States. And this is across the board, and it's definitely worse in some neighborhoods, some regions. So think about it this way. Now, remember that March is normally, and in California, we'll look at that slide, it's the month, the fourth month that we see, or the ranking, it's ranked number 4 for the month that we see the highest number of properties coming onto the market. So resale primarily. But look at this in the highlighted, 60,000 fewer homes on the market than over New Year's weekend. So we're not seeing an inventory increase, we are seeing an inventory decrease. Now, what that also does is you've got to think about that when a seller doesn't sell, they then are not in the market to buy the next home. So that reduces buyer demand even more. So for every one seller, 9 times out of 10, they end up being a buyer of something else. That element is being reduced. Now, this is what's basically creating the stability in the prices, because normally if we had normal inventory levels and we would have these homes that were continually coming onto the market, you have a decrease in buyer demand because the buyers can't afford the homes anymore. You should end up with these homes with these prices starting to come down because the buyers can be more selective because they're over here and you've got a big pool over here, and that's what typically would happen. Not happening because we do not have enough inventory. So many markets remain in pre-pandemic lows. Some have more listings than last year, and few have more than 2 years ago. And we are definitely in Southern California seeing that situation where we have declining inventory, which is keeping prices stable. So again, you cannot, as a seller, think that this is the time to come on and go for that high price and that you're then going to have a bidding war to get an even higher price. Those days are gone, because in that climate, that's when our interest rates were the 2s, the 3s, the 4s. We are now at the 7s. Where those interest rates are going to go, we don't know. We've heard ranges of 5.5 to 7.5. Yeah, we'll get to that. The other thing for sellers to understand is that the national rental vacancy rate is up. Now, again, this has changed. A couple of months ago, you could not find a rental available for love or money. And we had bidding wars on rentals. I personally represented tenants and landlords who were in that situation where everyone was trying to outbid everyone else just to get into a rental. So US rental vacancy rate is 6%, and it's increasing. And 62.5% of rental vacancies are in multifamily units. So this graph down on the left-hand side shows you, here's our median rent over here. So we know that the median rent, the amount that you can charge for your rental unit, that monthly rent is coming down. And here we have year over year. We saw this massive spike and now it's coming down again. For some markets, it's now becoming, because we've got the high interest rates and because we now have more available rentals on the market, those landlords are having to reduce their monthly rent rates. As a result, in some markets, it is getting to the point where if a home purchase would not be for a longer period than, say, 3 years, it makes sense for a seller to consider selling and then renting and waiting for the market to stabilize. Sellers, this means that rentals are now your added competition. And if we look at some institutional landlord owners, so these are 2 big institutional companies that own, as you can see, Invitation Homes owns 83,000 single family homes. single family homes, not just multifamily, so single family. And yet they saw the writing on the wall. They've seeing that they're not making enough money because they cannot rent out their units. And so they have sold, they've started selling off some of their properties. So for sellers, this is additional competition for you, because it's not just the individually owned homes around you coming on the market. It is now these properties coming on the market. And for institutional landlords, they've got to move their property pretty quickly, and they may be willing to make more concessions than you would as an individual property owner. American Homes for Rent, they own 59,000 single family properties, and they do not expect to take on and purchase any more properties in 2023. And they have also started listing more properties in December. So sellers, you've got buyers, you've got interest rates that are volatile, totally volatile right now and high right now, reducing your buyer demand because not as many buyers can afford to be there. You've got prices that are stabilized right now in many markets because there isn't enough inventory on the market. So from that point of view, that's really good. And we have the realization now from the renters and institutional renters, landlords, that they are starting to dump, and I put that in inverted commas, they're starting to dump some of their inventory for market value because they are no longer able to fill those doors. Definitely items to think about. Our final consideration is new construction. We are starting to see that there is more new construction inventory available, and it's getting to the point where it's a little higher than what most of the builders are comfortable with. So that's more competition as well in some markets, not necessarily in Southern California, because if you're in a coastal area where we don't have a lot of land available, we are not seeing a lot of new construction. You may see the custom homes, those onesies, twosies in an area, but we're not seeing massive new developments as are possible in some other parts of the country. Austin is a good example where there's land around Austin, and we've got that sprawl happening outside of Austin. And yet the further they're going, obviously there's other factors that play into that. But yeah, some of that inventory is now available, and that is creating more competition as well. In addition, the competition for sellers is that many of those builders can often offer great concessions that an individual homeowner may not be able to offer. So just keep that in mind if we're looking at the national picture. So what specifically is happening here in Southern California? And of course, I love to start off with interest rates. So again, these are rates that are supplied by some of our local lenders. Wells Fargo definitely are able to offer in the fives for a 30-year fixed jumbo loan, because many of our loans are definitely on that higher end because of the prices of homes, the values. And of course, that's going to come with a discount point. So that gives you an idea. So when we're talking about the 7%, it is so critically important that every buyer not just take that as being, that is what I'm going to end up paying. You truly have to meet with a mortgage professional and figure out where you lie on the spectrum. As I say, these ranges are sort of the 5.5 to the 7.5. It really depends on your picture as a borrower and then the property that you're looking at. So it's the combination of both, but there are options out there. So we have this is United American. They're sitting, and this is 0 points. So they're sitting in the sixes right now. Their 30-year high balance is a little higher than that as well. But again, these are 0 points. If you're talking about, with points, obviously for them, meet with a local representative. Here's a third lender, and I'm sorry, I didn't put their name in now, and I can't remember which one it was that I pulled. And they're also in the sixes, but it just shows how important it is. And yeah, for them, some of them are their high balance conforming fixed rate, they're up into the sevens. So it really is important to shop around and find the right product for you. Having a look more specifically at Southern California, the economist that we follow is Stephen Thomas. He gives a housing debrief. If you follow and receive our newsletter, we will be putting in his latest, greatest report, which we will be receiving later today, and that is our featured article. Okay, so now he is looking specifically, so we're going to go through a couple of graphs here. So the rates and payments of median detached home over time in Southern California. Now, again, we're going to talk about 2019, 2020, more or less stable. You know, we had some kind of funkiness going on down over here with interest rates, and that was because of COVID when we went down into those twos, those good old days that we're never going to see again, hopefully, because otherwise there's some major global calamity happening. And then that mortgage, the median detached home payment, when those interest rates start going up, obviously that's when the median price goes up. And that's the situation that we end up in. So this is where, you know, the beginning of 2022, things were looking really good. It looked like interest rates were down and everything was going to be hunky-dory and we were going to have a great market. And then, of course, the interest rates started going up. And then we had that same situation in January when the interest rates went down to the, you know, below that 6% threshold, that 5.99, and we were so thrilled. And now we're back up again. But again, keep in mind that the median home price has adjusted slightly, and it does every time when there is a rate increase and this volatility. So again, where we're going, you know, I wish somebody had this all figured out, but it doesn't seem like anybody does. So let's get going. Our next slide. So our California demand year over year. So what Stephen did with this graph is he went all the way back to 2013. And it's really good to see that there are trends that we should be expecting to be a little closer to what these averages and norms are. And yet our demand right now is starting already to drop off. We saw the increase when, you know, and this was the middle of January. And then we again, I keep going back, we went down into that 5.99 range and the buyer said, yeah, we're ready. Let's get out there and let's start shopping for a home. And then the volatility hit and we went up and we went down and we went to 6 and we went to 7. Then we, you know, it's been a little all over the show. And of course, buyers are saying, well, this is crazy. What on earth is going on? I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to wait. And this is the sellers too, because the sellers who are going to become buyers are sitting in that same boat. What on earth is going on and what can I expect? If I sell my home now, am I looking at an interest rate that's 5.99 or am I going to be stuck in the sevens? So that's why we're starting to see this demand that is kind of leveling off. And normally, excuse me, we would be closer to the April timeframe before we started seeing that demand stabilizing and then starting to drop off as we get past the spring craziness, and then we get into the fall when most families have moved and kids are back in school. Excuse me. This little dip over here, the green one, is of course COVID, when basically nothing was happening in real estate. We were, you know, the whole industry was shut down. Obviously, that's the buyer demand. So that green line is really that outlier, you know, ignore it. Really look at everything else and then focus in on this blue one here, which shows our demand is down. So just to get an idea of where we typically are, so this is just taking back, you know, going back to 2019, and that 3-year average, we normally 30% higher with demand. And demand is a measure of the properties that have entered into escrow. And, so we're now in a pending status. So we've definitely dropped off. We were looking so good, and it looked like we were going to get to these, the purple is 2019, the red is 2021, where everything was starting to recover. 2022, we were looking good. And then, of course, everything kind of came to a grinding halt when those interest rates started coming up. So this is where we are again. Demand is down because of the interest rates and because of affordability. So this is Stephen Thomas's prediction that these are kind of the trend lines that we're going to hit. As we say, normally we hit our sort of peaks of the buyer demand in April through sort of getting towards the end of June, because that's your families relocating. We know that that's typically when we see the most number of homes coming on the market going into escrow. And this year, it looks like we may increase slightly, and then we're just going to stabilize and taper off. Now, all of this could change if the interest rates come down. Big question, of course. Are they? So this is what I was alluding to earlier, where Stephen Thomas has been collecting data, and he can tell just from the trends of which months are the months when we normally see, and this is a 3-year average of the homes coming onto the market. We normally see the highest number in May, then April, June, and March. So this is the time where we normally really start seeing an increase happening. And yet we're starting to see that, I won't say peaked because we don't know yet. It's too soon. We're only on the 6th of March, but we're not seeing that nice gradual increase that we would expect to see. So new listings, to truly get a feel for how low our inventory is. And remember, this low inventory is what is basically combating that increase in the rate that's reducing the buyer pool, but it's not resulting in a decrease of prices. It's more of a stabilization of prices. And that's because if we look at this, in January, we were missing 41% of new listings that we would normally see. And new listings are properties coming onto the market, not necessarily new construction, but it's primarily our resale market in Southern California. And in February, an additional 40% are missing. So you put those two together, and that's almost 17,500 properties that are missing from our market. So we still have buyers, and they've got so few choices out here. They're looking. And we're going to look at some anecdotal information towards the end of this, so I can explain to you what we're seeing as real estate agents in the market right now of what is happening with the properties that are coming on. But this is huge. And again, look at this number. What are the trends that we normally see? Everything from the beginning of the year, other than when we've had something funky going on, we have seen that inventory increases more steeply, then it stabilizes, we get a few more, and then we end up going into, the after the summer market. And yet we're not starting on this trajectory, we're in this trajectory. So we are really, really battling with a lack of inventory for our buyers. So again, this was the same graph that we showed earlier. There was the title company that produced that with all the other things, and the 600,000 less than on the first of the year. But this just gives us an idea again. We are declining, and this is the national number, 9% in a month. Instead of increasing, we're in this instead of this for our inventory. This is the reason why we are not seeing prices plummeting. So buyers, I'm sorry, it's just, there just isn't enough out there to create that desired result of home prices coming down more. So active listing inventory in Southern California, we're down 10% in a month. A lot of that is even that latent the lagging market that was sitting there, if those sellers have done the correct price adjustments to bring it into the market range, those properties are selling, and they're selling fast. Our listing inventory year over year, normally we should see 78% more properties on the market than we're seeing currently. And today, that's 20,000. Just in the last two weeks, that we should have seen 20,000 more properties coming onto the market. And, it's the largest drop in a year. Our inventory is on this decline, and it's not on the incline. Expected market time as a result is dropping. So to get to a balanced market where it's ideal for buyers and sellers would be that 90 to 120 days. And we were courting that. We were definitely getting to that point where there were a lot more, it felt for buyers that they had more time, that they could shop around, that there were choices to shop, and then they could really take their time and make sure that they were making offers on the correct properties for the right reasons. They were more comfortable. And yeah, we are now dropping down. So we keep declining. So this is the speed of our market. We are getting faster and faster. Now, admittedly, last year when we had lower interest rates, we were in the 3s, that market time was a lot faster. So it was 25 days from the time that you listed your property for sale, put that sign in your yard, to when you could put that in escrow sign on that, instead of just having it for sale. 3-year average is 68 days, and we just keep declining. And in some markets, this is even faster. So Orange County, for sure, we are sitting in, I think it's 46 days. San Diego County is even less. LA County is a little higher. So what are we seeing, and where on earth is this market headed? Now, as I mentioned, there is not a lot on the market for buyers to see. We are starting to see, because of that, and because there are still buyers out there who need to buy a home, who are motivated, who are financially in a position to buy a home, even though we've got these crazy rates that we've been talking about. So as a result, we are seeing crowds at open houses. I think I mentioned last week that the home that we had that's currently pending, and we are expecting it to close this week. So please, for our sellers, we had basically 15-minute allotments for showings. That was the only way that we could get everybody through the home in the time that the sellers made available. Unique situation, couldn't do a traditional open house. It was all appointments. Originally, I set them at 30 minutes each to give buyers enough time to really get a feel for the property, explore it, discover it. And at the end of the day, we were down to 15-minute increments, which meant if anybody was late, they were running over each other in the home. So we are starting to see the lines of people at open houses again. Another thing that is back with a vengeance are multiple offers. Because there's so little inventory on the market, because there's enough latent buyer demand, there are still enough buyers out there to buy the limited homes that are available. They are having to compete with each other to get the home that they want. Now, we're not talking 100, 200, 300,000 over asking price and everything, every contingency in the world removed. It really depends on the market. So wherever that home is, the neighborhood, the street, what that home has to offer that buyer or that pool of buyers. But multiple offers are back. They are a reality. So, the big question right now is, well, where on earth is this market headed? And the only thing that is consistent with all the economists that I follow is no one has a clue. There are so many different parts and pieces to this. There's so much volatility that no one can clearly, honestly predict exactly where we're going. We have a jobs report coming out. I believe it's this Friday. If the jobs report shows that unemployment is still at such a low number, then that's maybe the impetus that the Feds need to do that 50 basis point increase on the 22nd of March and not go lower. So it all comes down to the consumer price index and inflation. Where are those numbers sitting? So all of these will then determine what that Fed rate increase looks like, because that Fed rate increase is what's going to drive the 10-year Treasury. The 10-year Treasury volatility is then what influences the mortgage rates. The mortgage rates are then what influences the buyer pool that's out there. And because we've got this total volatility, just like our weather right now, where we don't know if we're in summer, winter, and why is the West Coast colder than the East Coast? I mean, it's ridiculous right now. No one knows where we're going. So that is the only constant, is the volatility that we're in right now, and we just don't know. Let's look at how this is reflected in some of our local cities. So we're going to start off with Dana Point. And Dana Point is still a slight seller's advantage. And it does say that the market has begun to heat up in recent weeks. We're already in a seller's market, and not surprisingly, prices are showing evidence of moving up along with the lower levels of inventory. Now, again, as I mentioned, we know that the lack of inventory is what is keeping prices, good for sellers, not good for buyers, but good for sellers. And, as those multiple offers happen, we're going to see those prices come up. Are we going to start seeing as much as we saw previously? Probably not, because those interest rates are going to put a dampener on that explosive home sales price increases. So our median list price, 3.8. Median price of new listings, there aren't any that came on because we have so little inventory. So there's no figure for that one. Your median days on market, 74. So that's a little increase if we look specifically at Dana Point. And part of that is because of the price point. There are very few buyers who are able to truly look at homes that are at this price point. Price decrease, that's reduced. And then we look down, we've got 34 homes on the market in Dana Point. 34, that's nothing. And if those 34 homes are in this price point, there's very little movement in the market. Laguna Beach, median list price, 4 million. Median list price of the new listings, 3.5 million. Our median days on market is 102. And our price decreases, that slowed down for sure. Our inventory is 86. So the market remains in a relatively stasis in terms of sales to inventory. And prices have been relatively stable for a few weeks. And again, that's because we're not seeing a lot of inventory coming on. And there's enough of a buyer's market to just kind of keep it there. It's not as volatile a buyer's market, it's not as large a buyer's market. And again, that's because of the price point. So inventory is sufficiently low to keep us in the seller's market zone. So watch the changes. If the market heats up, prices are likely to resume an upward climb. It's all going to depend on those interest rates. However, the higher your median list price, the fewer loans are typically involved. Your higher price luxury properties tend to be cash deals. San Clemente, our median list price, 2.2, median price of new listings, 2.1. Average days on market is decreasing. And our median days on market is 49. 49. We're back into that hot seller's market. Price decrease, there are a couple that have increased, and that's because there are some higher priced properties that are sitting there. Those higher priced properties, absolutely, because the luxury market has stalled completely. And if a luxury seller is looking to sell their home, they're going to have to reduce that price. Our inventory continues to decrease, and there's only 54 on the market. So home sales continue to outstrip the supply, and the market action index has been moving higher for several weeks. This is a seller's market. And again, this is a hot seller's market. And this will result in upward pressure on pricing if this continues if we don't see some more inventory hitting the market. San Juan Capistrano is our final city that we're going to be looking at. Oh gosh, median list price 1.990, median price of new listings 1.995, so it's in that same range. Our median days on market 42. Always throughout all of the San Juan is our hottest market for sure. Price decreases, so that's coming down, and our inventory is 33. So home sales have been exceeding new inventory for several weeks. However, prices have not yet stopped falling. And the reason for that is, again, in San Juan Capistrano, if you look at that median list price, there are some huge outliers out there, some really, really expensive luxury properties that are going to need to see a couple of price reductions. So we probably will see that. So expect prices to level off very soon. Should the sales trend continue, expect the prices could climb from there. It's going to stabilize once those outliers are out of the way, and these median home prices will start being pushed higher because we don't have enough homes on the market. So getting back to our question, is now a good time to sell my home? If you have a need, it all goes down to your why. If you have a need to sell your home, now is a better time than waiting for more volatility, because nobody can predict what is going to happen with interest rates. We just don't know. It is so bizarre right now. Honestly, no one is able to say with certainty where these interest rates are going to go. So if you've got to sell, know that there are buyers out there. They will form a line outside your property if it is priced correctly for today's market, that more than likely you will end up with multiple offers and a resulting bidding war. It's not going to be an out of control bidding war, but it'll be a competitive situation, because if your property is priced correctly for its location and condition, you have buyers and you will be able to sell your property. Remember that, in our area, it's 40 something days on the market. That's just over a month. That's not bad. I mean, that's a good, solid seller's market to be in. So if now's the time, then it is absolutely the right time to sell your home. And of course, we're right here to assist you. So the Welcome Home Global Group is, we are real estate planners, and we are here to help you build and transfer your wealth through real estate. We will help you with a current portfolio analysis and a market analysis of every property that you own. We will help you understand the impact of the interest rates based on the price point of each of your properties and do that equity analysis. We can also give you an analysis of your capital gains burden, and then help you decide whether, help you with the data so that you can decide, is it time, like some of the institutional investors have done, to release their properties back into the market, or actually just reinvest into something that's going to give you a higher return. We know that the properties along the coastlines have the lowest cap rates. You're going to get a larger return on investment by doing a 1031 exchange if you have investment properties out of these where values are so high, and turning those into homes that our buyers can purchase right now on the coastlines, and then considering investing in properties that are more in the center of the country, where we know that their price reductions are a reality, which is a good thing for you, because when you're a buyer, you've got more that you're going to get for the your investment. Our biggest one is helping you build generational wealth. For many of us, that is our goal. And yet part of that plan tends to fall apart, because how many families are you aware of who have ended up in the court system once mom and dad have passed on, because the kids are never on the same page? I mean, think about yourself and your spouse, or you and a sibling. Are you ever on the same page with everything? And what tends to happen is, maybe there's 2 properties that are being left and you've got 3 children. How do you divide? Who gets to choose first? What's going to happen if one wants to live in the property, one wants to lease it out, and the third one wants to live in one of the properties rent-free? You know what I'm talking about. So we call that our family feud prevention plan. We are so honored to be able to sit down with our clients and just get them to think about some of these and make sure that they have plans in place to make sure that that hard work that they put into building generational wealth through real estate truly gets realized by the beneficiaries and doesn't end up being spent in the court system. Sorry to all my friends who are attorneys and in this space, but we really want the families to benefit from that. So whether it's building generational wealth or just an assessment of your property in today's market, please don't hesitate to reach out. Here's my contact info. We would be absolutely honored to assist you on this journey and empower you with the right information so that you can make an informed decision. And as always, we hope that you have a wonderful, wonderful week ahead. Enjoy. I don't know if I can say that, but we have sunshine today. I know we went out and it took a while, but you can eventually feel the warmth of the sun on your face. So hopefully our market will stabilize just like we're hoping the weather will. I saw 60s in the forecast for next week. I mean, seriously, we're in California and we're excited about we're going to see 60s in our temperature. Well, I am hoping, and this is our desire, is that whoever's in charge of messing with our real estate market when it comes to interest rates is going to stabilize, let everything absorb. We need some stability so that buyers and sellers can get back on track. Any questions? Give me a call. You know how to reach me. So honored to be here and support you. Have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I will see you next week.